I'm sitting at my kitchen island, the morning sunlight spilling across the marble counter, and I can feel the smooth silk of my blouse against my skin. It's a small luxury when I allow myself in these quiet moments before the world intrudes. My phone vibrates on the granite, a sudden, urgent buzz that slices through the soft hum of the coffee machine. I glance at the screen, and my heart thuds. It's a name I haven't wanted to see for years, my sister. I stare out the window at the street below, lined with autumn leaves drifting in the breeze, and I remind myself how far I've come. Everyone thinks I'm the perfect version of myself now. Composed, accomplished, untouchable. They don't know about the nights I cried into my pillow, the betrayals I swallowed silently, the weight of being pushed aside by the people who were supposed to love me most. The message she sent is short, almost casual, but it hits like a sledgehammer. We need to talk. Mom and Dad think you should forgive me. My stomach twists. Forgive her. After everything. After him. The bitter irony makes me smirk briefly, like the universe has a sense of humor that borders on cruel. I run my fingers over the cold countertop, steadying myself. I can feel the old ache rising, that mix of anger and sorrow that never fully leaves. But I also feel something else, something heavier, stronger. The part of me that refused to break the first time, that built a life from the pieces they thought were worthless. That part is awake now, and it's ready to face them. I remember the night it all started, the air thick with tension and the scent of my mother's favorite jasmine candle. I was 26, fresh out of a job that barely paid my bills, standing in the living room of the house I had grown up in, and feeling smaller than ever. My parents sat across from me, their expressions a mixture of frustration and disbelief, while my sister lounged on the sofa, an entitled smirk curling her lips like she owned the room. She's family, my mother said, her voice trembling. You have to forgive her. You'll ruin everything if you don't. I felt my throat tighten. Everything. She had seduced my husband. She had crossed lines that no one should ever cross, and now I was supposed to smile and forgive her because that's what a good sister did? My hands shook as I clutched the edge of the coffee table, nails digging into the wood as though holding on would keep me from falling apart. I can't, I whispered, my voice barely audible. I can't do that. The room fell silent, but it wasn't the quiet of understanding. It was the quiet of disappointment, of judgment. My father shook his head slowly, eyes filled with a kind of sorrow that felt like blame. My sister rolled her eyes, tapping her fingers against the leather cushion like I was being ridiculous. It was then that I felt the lump in my throat grow, the sting of being dismissed by the people who were supposed to protect me. My grandmother's words from years ago echoed in my mind. Strength isn't what they see. It's what you hold inside when they try to break you. And in that moment, I realized I had a choice. I could bend, apologize, and let them all walk over me, or I could step away. I could leave the judgment, the betrayal, the suffocating expectations behind, and start over. I grabbed my purse, my heart hammering, and walked out of that house with my head held high. It was terrifying, yes, but it was the first time in my life I felt like I had truly claimed myself. I didn't know it then, but leaving that house was the moment everything changed. I moved into a small apartment downtown, the kind with cracked tiles in the bathroom and a view of the freeway instead of a manicured lawn. Every night, I sat at my rickety desk, laptop perched on shaky legs, learning everything I could about marketing and branding. I didn't have a mentor yet, just determination and the memory of my grandmother's words like a shield against the world. Then, one rainy afternoon, I met Evelyn Parker, a seasoned entrepreneur whose presence filled the room like sunlight. She looked at me, not pitying, not condescending, but with the kind of recognition that makes you feel seen. You have fire, she said. Don't waste it apologizing to people who don't deserve it. That single line became my compass. Under her guidance, I began taking freelance clients, small projects at first, but each one a stepping stone. The beginning was brutal. I juggled 3 part-time jobs, answering emails late into the night while exhaustion clawed at my mind. My apartment smelled of burnt coffee more often than anything else, and some nights I cried silently into my pillows, thinking about the family I had left behind. But for every tear, there was a small victory. My first client who paid me in full without haggling, the first glowing testimonial, the first moment I realized I was good at this, maybe even better than anyone expected. I kept my success hidden. My social media posts were carefully curated, showing generic smiles at conferences or generic office shots, never revealing the true scale of my growth. I didn't want them to see, not yet, not until I could walk into any room knowing I was untouchable. There was satisfaction in the secrecy, a quiet revenge that didn't need shouting. I bought my first car with cash, a sleek black sedan that gleamed under the streetlights, and each small indulgence was a quiet declaration. I had survived, and I was thriving. By the time I hit 30, I owned my own boutique marketing firm, specializing in turning struggling brands into powerhouse names. My team respected me, my clients trusted me, and the whispers of my name began spreading in circles I'd only dreamed of entering. I had built a world from scratch, a world where I was in control, a world where my sister's betrayal was nothing but a shadow behind me. And still, I kept it secret, my true life tucked behind polished veneers, waiting for the right moment to step out and show the world, and them, who I had truly become. It was a crisp Saturday afternoon when they arrived, unannounced, in the lobby of my firm's downtown office. I'd been expecting them sooner or later, my parents and my sister, all of them, driven by the same misguided sense that I would be broken and begging for reconciliation. I stepped out of my private elevator, heels clicking against the polished marble floor, and felt that old familiar flutter of nerves, now tempered by years of steel. The reception area was quiet, filled with the scent of fresh orchids and rich leather furniture. Art lined the walls, abstract pieces I had commissioned after my first big client deal, and glass walls revealed teams of focused employees, a humming ecosystem of ambition. I watched as their expressions shifted. Confusion first, then skepticism, finally a slow dawning realization. "Jessica," my mother's voice quivered. I smiled, perfectly poised, letting the silence stretch just long enough to draw them in.
"Mom, Dad."
"Hello," I said smoothly. "It's been a long time." My sister, ever entitled, tilted her head, lips pursed. I thought you were... I didn't expect," her voice faltered. I guided them into my office, a space that was all at once elegant and personal, floor-to-ceiling windows with a city view, awards neatly displayed on shelves, a few framed photographs of travels I'd taken alone, trophies of freedom I had earned. I gestured toward the seats, seating them across from the sleek mahogany desk that bore the insignia of my firm's name. "I assume you're here because Mom and Dad think I should forgive you," I began, my tone calm, measured, but with an edge that couldn't be missed. Their eyes flickered, unsure whether to brace for anger or pride. "But let me clarify a few things first." I leaned back, letting the chair support me, and began enumerating my achievements, each revelation landing like a weight. "I own this company. I have a portfolio of clients worth millions. Every campaign you've heard about in the news this year with our branding? That's me. The team here? I hired them, I lead them, and I am the reason they are thriving." Their jaws tightened. My father's hand shook slightly as it hovered over his knee. My mother's eyes filled with a mixture of disbelief and guilt, and my sister's smug confidence collapsed into something like horror. I wasn't struggling. I continued, letting the words settle over them like a calm storm. I was building. I was learning. And while you were trying to control me, trying to dictate how I should feel and whom I should forgive, I created a life that doesn't need your approval. A life you can't touch. My sister opened her mouth to protest, to claim some twisted moral high ground, but I held up my hand. "No, there will be no lectures, no arguments. Just the facts. I am not the person you think I am. And I won't apologize for surviving, for thriving, or for refusing to bend to your expectations." Their stunned silence was deafening. I watched my mother's gaze drift to the orchids on my desk, perhaps remembering how she once bought them for me as a child, or maybe realizing that the woman she underestimated had become untouchable. My father's sigh was low, almost reverent, and my sister stared, mouth open, unable to form the words that might have excused her behavior. I let them absorb it all. The victories, the independence, the undeniable power I had carved from years of pain and betrayal. And then, finally, I leaned forward, resting my hands on the desk, and said simply, "Now that we're clear, we can talk about what comes next, on my terms." I watched them shift in their seats, a mixture of relief, shame, and disbelief painting their faces. I had the upper hand now, and for the first time in our family's history, the balance of power was mine. No longer the timid, obedient daughter, no longer the one they could manipulate with guilt or expectation. This was my moment to reclaim not just my life, but the boundaries that had been violated for far too long. "I'll make this simple," I began, my voice steady, warm but unwavering. "I care about family, but I won't let old patterns dictate my life. There are conditions if any of you want to be a part of it." My mother's eyes widened, and I could see her bracing for anger, but this wasn't anger. It was clarity. "Mom, Dad, you need to stop trying to control how I process pain. Therapy, reflection, honest conversations about your own choices and behaviors. You need to let me exist without guilt being weaponized against me." Then I turned to my sister, who was still struggling to comprehend her reflection in my reality. "And you," I said, keeping my tone firm but composed, "you need to acknowledge what you've done and stop expecting forgiveness as a courtesy. You must take responsibility, face consequences, and work on becoming the person capable of respecting others' boundaries. You have to change, not just for me, but for yourself." I leaned back, letting my words sink in. The silence was heavy, but this time, it felt right. For years, I had carried the weight of their mistakes. Now, it was theirs to confront. I wasn't closing the door completely. I was opening it on my terms, with clear lines they had to honor. Then I added a softer note, the part of me that understood they were flawed human beings just like I had been. "I'm not cruel," I said. "I want you to heal. I want our family to grow. But growth requires accountability, not apologies for appearances. If you're willing to do that, then maybe there's a way forward. But only if you truly commit." I noticed my sister's posture soften slightly, her face shadowed with realization that her entitlement couldn't survive here. My parents nodded slowly, absorbing the truth that I wasn't the child they thought they controlled. The power shift wasn't just about money, success, or status. It was about respect, self-worth, and boundaries. And in that room, with the city skyline stretching beyond the windows and the hum of my thriving company around us, I felt a calm certainty settle over me. I had endured their pressure, their manipulations, and their betrayals. I had survived. And now, for the first time, the rules of engagement were mine to write. I wasn't just reclaiming my life. I was teaching them how to respect it. Months passed after that confrontation, and change, slow as it was, began to ripple through my family. My sister started attending therapy, her entitled arrogance replaced by cautious reflection. My parents began having those uncomfortable conversations about accountability and boundaries, shedding layers of guilt and control that had governed their lives for decades. I watched from a distance, feeling a quiet pride in their growth, knowing that I'd given them space to change, but never letting them forget that the power now belonged to me. I often returned to the small apartment where it all began, the place where I had first believed in myself against a world that doubted me. I sit in the same spot at my desk, now polished and professional, and run my fingers over the old wooden surface, feeling the worn edges. The memory of my grandmother's words comes back to me, clear and steady. Strength isn't what they see, it's what you hold inside when they try to break you. I close my eyes, taking in the journey, the nights of tears, the moments of self-doubt, the victories so small they seemed invisible, and the triumphs that were larger than life. It's strange how pain can be transformed into power and betrayal into clarity. I no longer feel bitterness when I think of what was lost. I feel gratitude for what it taught me, for the woman I became because of it. I am Jessica now. Independent, resilient, respected, and untouchable in ways they could never fully understand. And in the quiet of my office, With the skyline stretching endlessly beyond my windows and the hum of a thriving team around me, I allow myself a small, private smile. The journey was long, and the scars remain, but they no longer hurt. They remind me of the battles I've survived, the boundaries I've drawn, and the life I've built for myself. I glance at the little silver locket my grandmother gave me years ago, resting on my desk, a reminder that strength is internal, that survival is beautiful, and that self-respect is the greatest victory. With a deep breath, I rise from my chair, ready to face the future unshaken, unbending, and fully, unapologetically myself. And as I step into the next chapter of my life, I say softly, almost to myself, I forgave myself first, and that made all the difference.